welcome back to another day, Everyday Wholeness Show, another episode of the Everyday Wholeness Show with Janet Uribe and myself, Karen Stultz, where we talk about the beauty and the wholeness of being you. How you doing, Janet?
I am good. I've been a little, well, I don't know if you remember, we had to cancel a show a while back, and we did re-recordings and everything to catch up, but I have been on the mend from some asthma attacks that I have not been very curious about.
Which actually goes into the title of this show, Wholeness of Curiosity.
Yeah.
I love it.
The wholeness of curiosity. And I think so many of you can relate to that title, because if you think about, you're with your spouse, your partner, whoever, your family, you're a young adult, you're making decisions in life and you say, let's move here. And you get there and you have all of these discoveries, epiphanies, realizations, growth opportunities, all created for you, technically by you, but for you. And the thing is, a lot of times we'll just sit there and accept it as part of our 3D human reality. And we don't get a little bit more curious about what's going on there. And it took me basically ending up in the hospital on breathing machines and steroids and so on to be able to be a little bit more curious about, Janet, why can't you breathe right now?
What is going on? What is the situation? And I'm so happy to hear that you did go to the doctor.
Yeah.
You did go to the hospital and get that extra assistance, because when we are having that issue, it's very philosophical, I guess, that we can say, well, we can cure ourselves, which we can.
Yeah.
And Janet and I have both proven to ourselves and others that they can cure themselves and we can cure ourselves, or at least make ourselves better for the period of time that needs to be made better. However, when we don't have that curiosity, when the symptoms show up, or prior to, even better, before the symptoms show up, have that curiosity so that we know what to look at, what we might be able to accept or change or reject outright, or something else.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just having the awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's something you can do with it, but sometimes just bringing it to your awareness. This was one of my favorite, this is going to sound crazy. I think our last episode was something about honoring the beauty. And let me tell you what, I was honoring the beauty of not being able to breathe in the middle of attack. And what's fascinating is when I can't breathe, I can't channel, right? We're in spirit, which means in breath. And so that was not something I had access to at that moment. So I really had to focus the mind to really start to get pragmatically into, why is this happening? When did this first happen? And it was fascinating to watch, because I was actually able to control my symptoms a little bit.
With that curiosity.
The curiosity, correct. So I'll get into it. So basically, when I was a teenager is when the asthma came on. I always had allergies and stuff before then, but I had never had a real attack until I was about 16, 17 years old. And I was at that time in my life in scenarios, relationships that I perceived as threatening. And because of that, I can see today that psychosomatically, we'll get into like the psychology of it, even the science of it, the asthma started to appear when there was anxiety, or when the body was perceiving trouble, fear, I'm not safe. And that's when the asthma exacerbates itself and it shows up and it's harder to calm. So one reason I'm telling you I had a good time this time with it, I don't think many people would have been as calm as I was. I don't think I would have been this calm a few years ago. I was just really neutrally observing what was going on. And
as
I know
you are drowning and not able to breathe, right?
Yeah. Wow. I don't know that many people would have been able to do that. And don't get me wrong, I had moments of fear in that as well.
Oh,
Because
wow.
I did hit hypoxia and hypoxemia, where it starts to affect your muscles and your thinking, you lose cognitive function. It took me a few days to be able to walk around normally again. But the idea being this, I just had such a trip recognizing the first asthma attack, when it happened, what the triggers were behind it, why the certain individual I was hanging out with was I was perceiving them as a threat, why I felt scared for my life, why I felt that having an asthma attack actually kept me safe from having to do things like go to work,
Mm.
kept me safe from having to do things like overwork or overperform or over show up for someone and be of service and give and people please and so on and so forth. And the list goes on and on and on and on. So this one attack was so monumentous that I had almost a full week to do work around it and really see how that one event in my teens really kind of spiraled out into this more immense scenario. And my asthma has mostly laid silent for years, but I had a scenario that triggered it
Yeah.
when I did not feel safe. And I felt like I was being smothered and covered by the list of things that are on my plate, which is the exact feeling I had at 17.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
It is interesting, isn't it? We think we have conquered it. We've faced our fears. We've moved forward. Everything is good, but we haven't been curious enough to really take care of that.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and until we do, it's going to show up again, right? Just
Yeah.
like with you. And I've had the same thing. Not ending up in the hospital, but it is a curiosity. And I think I may have mentioned it on the show before about breaking my ankle and shattering my foot, or vice versa, one or the other. And looking at the situation and knowing that all things for a reason, right? Because we're whole, all things for a reason. This is happening for some reason. So I spent a lot of time just being curious. What was it about this? Why did I break my foot and my ankle? Why did this happen? It's trying to tell me something. So that curiosity was always there. Now, did I ever actually find out? No. However, I do know that it was for a reason, and perhaps it was simply a case of, in my search to allow and figure out what went on, I was able to stand in my power and say, wearing this blickety blank boot is not going to be helpful in the long run. Let's look at this a little bit realistically. I will help my foot and my ankle heal, and I will have thrown out my hip and my back and my shoulders. How cool is that? Because I'm wearing a boot. I think what I'll do instead is be able to just sit here and see what else shows up and keep in that curiosity of what the heck was going on. And I talked to people about the possibilities of why this occurred. And all of that taught me so much. It really taught me so much. And it also allowed me to recognize what I was not willing to let go of.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think that's the thing is that we don't, it will show up again. You're so right. It will show up if we don't get to the true core of it to understand why we haven't been willing to let go of it.
Mhm.
And in this case, I've done a lot of work and there may be more that I'm not aware of today. But I can see today that I wasn't willing to let go of it because there's a certain addiction that I also had to the chaos,
Oh, yeah.
a certain addiction I had to the busyness, a certain addiction I have to the creation and the productivity. And, that may be something that I heal one day.
And the stress.
Yeah. And the stress. And it may not. It may also have its own service or function in this reality. I don't know today, but I am curious enough to let it present itself when it's time.
That is so cool. That is so cool. And that's what it is, it's part of being whole is being curious, allowing that curiosity to guide you and keeping it more of a curiosity. You don't have to buy into it totally, but be curious, acknowledge, appreciate what it might be showing you along the way. And then take the ownership of this is something for me I am not willing to let go of. However, it did allow me to make the choice, make the decision that I don't need to break my foot to understand this anymore. I got it. I got this part. This is something I'm not willing to let go of, but I am going to be aware when it gets to be detrimental for me. And I will do something about it, but it's not detrimental all the time. It's just something to be aware of now.
Yeah. That's so true. And the awareness is the start. That's just the first stepping stone to all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's all about just being whole in all of our wholeness, all of the beauty, all of the curiosity, all of the resistance. It's all part of being whole. So honor it, appreciate it, recognize it for what it is, because our purpose in life is to be happy, healthy, and whole in everything that it brings.
It's so true. So beautifully said, my friend.
Oh, Janet, this has been so much fun. I always love hanging out with you and talking about the wholeness of life. And people, please, or my friends, not people. We are friends. That's it. Friends, please like us, subscribe, hit the notification buttons on YouTube. And if you'd like us to send you reminders, please put your email in the box or just comment to us and DM us, whatever. We want to hear from you, your thoughts, anything that you would like to hear about. So until next time, be whole.